Does anybody have any objection to starting with discussion of electronic delivery of meeting material? Yeah. She's got homework to do.
Matt?
Huh?
Yeah, she don't even need to be here.
I object.
What she wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
I object. Whatever he says, I object.
Matt.
Of course it did.
Post on Facebook, taking credit.
John told me to. I just do what John
You
says.
represent. Everybody ready? Good evening. I hereby call the Committee of the Whole meeting to order. We have 3 items on the agenda tonight, and we would like to begin with a discussion of electronic delivery of meeting materials. Would you like to start, Mrs. Wood?
Sure. Well, the clerk's office is definitely interested in trying to make sure that we reduce our carbon footprint and make things as easily accessible and for the paperwork for the meetings. So we've been kicking around for a while doing an email delivery of documents for each of the meetings. I think we've finally practically figured out how we can do that in a way where everyone's emails will accept the files, because the PDFs can be very large. So we're going to be, or the plan is to zip them. I know that from conversations that I've had with, various individuals, personally, that some people prefer to have their packages in paper, some prefer or don't really mind one way or the other. So ultimately, the clerk's office would like to move forward to only doing electronic delivery. I was hoping to get a little bit of input from each of you guys to see if you would be okay with that, see if you still wanted some, paper documents for the meeting itself, or whether, everyone wanted to bring in their own electronic, computer, tablet, whatever for the meetings. My pie in the sky hope is that we can provide each of the council members with like a tablet of some kind, or maybe a small laptop or something at some point in the future, specifically for council meetings, so that they can use them during the meetings. But that's obviously a while off. So I thought we'd open it up and see what everyone thought.
Mr. Tracy.
And we looked into the public records access portion of that, meaning if we bring computers in to access those files, are our computers now subject to public record?
From my understanding and discussing it with the law department, these documents are all public records anyway.
Right.
So it shouldn't actually cause an issue. We had that conversation, yeah.
What about your notes?
Your notes.
Your notes would be.
Yeah.
But they're public record anyways, whether they're paper or.
Yeah.
Right, but if they're on my computer, now you got my computer.
They're not. They don't take your. When there's a public records clause, they don't take your computer. You get a request for public records. You have to produce those public records. I would actually argue it'd be easier to produce them if they're on a computer versus.
I'd much rather go to a filing cabinet and pull the packet out than sit there and thumb through my computer, to be honest. I don't have a lot of extra time.
Well, the other issue is obviously our paper usage too, and it's definitely a cost savings to the city. So, and I know other, groups like the school board, I believe, is all electronic from what I understand now. So it's not like there's not precedent out there for doing it that way.
But they issue them, I think,
Laptops.
tablets or yes, electronics. So if we got to a point where we got a grant or something like that to be able to do that, otherwise I'm printing all that paper and all that on my own. So
Well,
where's the savings at?
I
Just for the
think
city.
I think that, or at least to start off, what we could do would be to email the packages to everyone, like on that Friday, instead of having everyone stop by to pick them up or having the police drop them off. So then we'd have the savings of time, and then, having people drop them off or having you guys to come and get them. And then we could have basic documents and paper here, like we could have copies of the ordinances, just certain things that you guys would find useful. I mean, whatever items that you guys might like, we could have printed and waiting here for you. So then, we're printing off items that are needed, but not the entire package necessarily.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of where I was going to. I wonder if, because I heard some of you guys kind of didn't want to go fully electronic or paperless. But after the emails came out, I was looking at kind of the stacks, and I've been here since January 1st, and I've got like a quarter of my filing cabinets already filled, and it's pretty deep. So, and I was like, what are these? I mean, some of the packets we get, the research behind it are 30 pages. I probably would be much more okay having certain of the critical items, like I love that the ordinances maybe printed out, so we have that in front of us, and you're ticking along as you go. But maybe some of the supporting research that people provided, that's usually the bulk of the paper anyway. Maybe that could be electronic, and if you really felt compelled to print those off, so be it. But I think the idea would be over the weekend, we're doing that research. On Monday, you're making those phone calls that you need to make. Come Tuesday, you only probably have 5 to 10 pieces of paper in front of you on the desk, and it's just the critical items. So maybe it's like a mix. You email everything, and then print out. We'll make a list. Maybe we approve a list. Ordinances, copies, agenda, and then whatever else people have.
Yeah.
Kind of something in the middle. So you're doing your research, because we don't probably need that to be printed off in front of you. You presumably have already read that before you came to the meeting.
Well, and then that way you could put your notes on those items, those pieces that were printed out too.
Yeah.
And then kind of put those to the side so that if there is a public records request, you could give that paper if you'd like.
Just trying to get a gauge of what the interest is,
I'd be okay with that.
if maybe a hybrid of what's going on now. Just make it easier for everyone.
Okay.
John, what do you think?
I personally, I enjoy getting, it's easier for me to go through, I don't own a personal laptop myself.
Yeah.
I do have a desktop at home and I use quite often. But it's hard to look up things like that on my phone. So I like to be able to look through the paper, but I'm okay with a partial, I understand it's going to be cost savings. So even if half of us are okay with it and the other half maybe, if half participate, then that we're saving a lot of paper there. So I understand.
Eric, Mr. Thompson, what do you think?
I like Mr. DiNardo's suggestion of the, but I think having the actual ordinances in front of us and the schedule is a good thing to go, but all supporting documents can be PDF is fine with me.
Okay.
Okay. Well, what I'd be happy to do, and we could try out for maybe a few meetings, is email the entire package to everybody, and then we can have the agenda and ordinances printed out and waiting here for you when you get here in the meeting. And then I can have Laura print 1 or 2 full packages for anybody who really wants the full package in front of them. It's kind of a
Trial, almost.
yeah. Well, as and kind of a backup too, because you never know. In the middle of the meeting, somebody might want to look up something and not have quick access to it, but then we'd still have something available, and it'd save a lot of time for people having to pick up and drop off.
Mr. Joyce?
Can we possibly, if we're going to try and start doing at least the computers, at least getting maybe some extension cords or something through here?
I think that's doable. Some maybe
Just
power
in case
bars and
something
extension
needs
cords. Okay.
I know mine needs the battery,
Okay.
right?
Mr. Bonsall, what do you think, sir?
Yeah, I mean, I like the idea of having at least definitely the supporting documents. I mean, I'm telling you, after 4 years on council, the amount of paperwork I have filed at home is ridiculous, and it just keeps growing. And so I think my wife would be happy with that too, for me to have less paperwork at home. But I mean, I will say just about the zip file. I mean, so part of the benefit of sending it out electronically, I think, is also because I can usually pull my city email up on my phone. You know, my personal phone doesn't really I can't open zip files as easily. At least I haven't figured it out. I mean, I'm happy if T.A. Brown can help me or what have you. So I'm open to it if we can figure it out, to doing it. So even if like it's so big that it has to be broken up, or if it there's a place that can be uploaded. I mean, even if it's like a Dropbox or a Google Drive. I mean, sometimes you can secure those. I don't know how all of it works, but just a suggestion if there's a way to do another format besides zipping it, could be beneficial.
I know the city does have a Google Drive account, and Laura and I were going to try it out for some other things. Another possible option that we're looking into is, loading the package onto the council website. The issue that we have there is that when we send the company who hosts the website a document, it can sometimes take them a couple of days to get it loaded. So, and even still on their website, we don't know what their capability is or what size files we can give them necessarily, so we still might have to do like a zip or something.
Sure.
So Laura's checking into that to see, what the parameters would be to load it there. And then that would also solve the issue of providing copies of the packages to, the townspeople, so they can see also.
Yeah. And I will say, so I did send an email just to you, and I think I CC'd Mr. Miracle. I will say that if we do go paperless or all paperless, or even half paperless, I put it in there, but there's a few different companies that do like electronic hosting. This Norwood City School District uses a program called Board Docs, and that's really focused on school boards. So, I mean, I'd say that may not fit our needs, but there's other ones that focus on other things, and they even have other packages in play that can help with you recording motions and votes and stuff like that, could make it easier to run the meeting or easier to either prepare or do all the stuff you have to do after the meeting. There's a lot of work there. So the good thing about using an electronic system like that too would just be that we could have all of those things online, and not that you can't post the minutes on the website. I mean, that's fine, but even just like finance committee stuff, I mean, Mr. DiNardo could put the different financial reports on there, or the auditor's office could even upload it there for finance committee, and then all the citizens have access to all the documents that their finance committee, any committee's looking at. And there's ways that we could probably do it without using this other system, but I just don't want to I don't want to do it in a way that's not the best way forward if possible, because I want citizens to get the full experience. If we're going to start moving this direction, I'd like them to have access to as much as possible too, and I think that would even benefit us as well. So I don't have to keep it. It's just easy to find things later. So yeah, there's different things out there. I sent you, I think, one of them. It'd be great if we could look into something like that.
Well, we'll continue to do some research.
Sure.
But we wanted to begin a dialogue with everyone.
Yeah.
And appreciate your input. Anyone have anything else regarding this topic? Thank you, Mrs. Williams.
Okay.
Thank
you very much, gentlemen.
Appreciate it.
Next discussion is discussion of the Cappy's license. And I think Mr. Moore had some documents. Would you like to start us off with discussion of Cappy's, and maybe, where's anybody, whoever wants to begin?
I did. I remember
emailed
it
us.
came up at the meeting that the question was, what's the stand for as far as the trick? Because there's two issues here. Personally, for my office, the big one is mainly the appeal. Do we really want to object and have a hearing? If council doesn't want to have a hearing, that's fine with me, because winning a hearing like that is hard. The cities won a couple. One of them was Soupy's, but that took a couple of tries, and that was a couple hundred police runs a year. And the other one was the Sherman Market, and they were closed. The county closed them. It was a nuisance. So it's hard to win those. So if that for my, personally, that's the issue I'm most worried about. As far as the Trex transfer, there was a question of what qualifies as economic development. And so I put together, I pulled up the statute,
there's no regulations, there's no case law, there's essentially no guidance other than what's in there, the factors that are listed there. So it's like jobs, the amount of construction that's going to be done, that kind of thing that's going to be created by allowing this. I mean, the idea of the Trex was, if you're going to build Rookwood and there's no permits for Buca di Beppo or J. Alexander's, if you can find a way to transfer in from elsewhere, that's really going to spur economic development. That's why the state passed it in the first place. On the other side, the Liquor Control Commission, they are not in the business of denying liquor permits or not letting people have them. So if city council...
They're not in the business of not letting people have them.
Right, they are not in the business of taking them away. They're in the business of helping the alcohol selling business, industry. That's kind of their thing. So yeah, they do not, my understanding is if council, if the mayor, or actually I can sign it myself, if the city determines that this is an economic development worthy project, they pretty much are not going to challenge that. But the factors are there. I mean, as to whether or not, ideally, and it's in the application, how many jobs are going to be created? How much money are you going to spend on upgrading the building or building a new building? Those kinds of things are in the application they submitted. They're required to be, but those are the kind of the factors that in theory you're supposed to look at. I don't know if anybody's got any particular questions. But that's just, that's why I sent out the memo, to give people a little background on it.
Thanks.
Anyone have any comments?
Sure, thank you. So my question is just in the process. Last time this was up, I was under the impression that we had to vote on it and whatever, but now I'm under the impression we don't. It's just waiting on a signature. So do we have to vote on this, or is this something that, and if not, no, I'm just...
The technical process is it can be signed and approved by the mayor, the law director, or the president of council, the council representative. There was one that came in over at Rookwood, and I ran it past everybody, and I thought everybody was fine with it, so I signed it, and then it turns out, no, what are you doing? This is crazy. I can't believe you did that. So my policy is I'm not doing it unless the council says it's okay. So
the vote would
By
be...
a verbal?
a verbal fine, ideally a motion, but in this context, I would recommend, in a committee meeting, we can't have a formal vote, but if the committee report comes out that says the committee of the whole is okay with this Trex transfer, then I'm happy to defer to Ken, let Ken sign it or the mayor sign it. But that's my policy, but I'm not doing it unless council says it's okay, because,
He didn't say, I'm happy to sign it after that. He said he's happy to have either of us.
Well, I think that's, and I
Simple as
think,
that.
but it's just like, it's an odd thing to me that the law department can. It's just, it came to me, and I felt the responsibility for taking care of the paperwork. So, but once bitten, twice shy.
Why, a follow-up, why did you say it seems to me that we can't vote. It seems to me that we could ask our approval and then tell you effectively we are all okay, not okay, or some of us are...
And then you'd put it in the committee report and then report it out.
So
Sure.
I think we can
Vote.
Sure you can.
in practice.
Yes, in practice. You just can't have a roll call vote.
public.
There you go.
It's
That's
one
what I
of
was trying to
those-
get at.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay. Anyone else? Mr. Tracy?
And I think this still comes back to where I was discussing last meeting, that with the economic development portion of it, I haven't seen a formal number of employees like I had asked two meetings ago. I haven't seen a informal or formal plan for what the building's going to look like as far as aesthetics. That's part of economic development. I haven't seen anything come from Cappy's itself other than the word of somebody that says, I'm going to do this. Take my word for it.
Do you want to ask?
I mean,
Could I? just interject just real quick. When I put this in a committee, I asked that he be here, and he wasn't notified. So he's here. Luckily, we told him about it yesterday. But Ben did come today. He's not prepared to show us anything that he was in the process of, wanting to do or get his plans, try to get those in process. So, just as a precursor there, he should have been invited last week when the meeting was, so he could have been better prepared. But he still wanted to come tonight, answer any questions that we may have.
Mr. Kelch?
I would like to respond if I could. I get understanding he's not prepared me right now, but last week myself and Mr. Tracy both gave him our email addresses. I have my oppositions on it, so I would have thought that we would have got something saying, hey,
You didn't know these immediately.
Well, I mean, just given the time, hey, you're opposed to what I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Let me try to help you, give you a warm and fuzzy feeling.
That's fair. Well, he's here. Can we? I mean,
Yeah, I would love to
Coming up.
have him.
Come on up.
Yeah, you can come.
Just like, I thought
You might want to
when
have
I was at the last meeting,
Actually,
Well, we don't have a thing.
come up to Maria's spot.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, when there's not
This
a
is
thing.
kind of-
Can he sit at Maria's spot?
Committee's informal, he can, yeah.
Yeah, you can sit up here and
thank you
next
so
to
much.
Keith.
Real formal process.
I think it's close. Sharon comes in tomorrow. She's the one who's been updated. We just want to be able to hear.
yeah, no, in one side. So my understanding, because at the last meeting, I also thought that John had put it up for a vote, so I thought it was at least going to be voted on whether it moved to committee or not. So I didn't understand exactly what was going on. I waited till the end of the meeting, and you guys had a meeting that people couldn't be at, so I wasn't really able to talk to anybody. I did get your information. I have spoke with some city council members. I mean, there's a lot of people I'm trying to touch base with and do things with. My understanding is I would be told about the committee, and then I would be able to come in with a plan and what we're going to do. I already have set up to meet with Mark Graves tomorrow down at Cappy's, because I was given the information yesterday to talk about what we can do with the front of the building and the sign. Some of the other things I've talked about is tying in, taking care of the front of the building if that's a huge thing, and tying in if we do what the plans say, then the Trex, I don't know if that's legal or how, but can we tie that into like a stipulation? Like, I think they call it like a good neighbor agreement my attorney was talking about. I mean, if there are concerns about things being done, tie it into doing the front of the building first, and then if that happens according to the plans that everybody in Norwood agrees upon, that would, that's starting to show some good faith in my opinion.
Ben, just real quick,
Yes, sir.
Since let's start from the beginning. Since you're talking about the sign, you did apply for a sign last year.
3 years ago, about 3 years ago,
All right,
2.5
and you were
years ago.
denied.
And we were denied.
Okay.
Yes.
So
and
now it's a matter of, unfortunately, that's one of the things that I have issue with, and hopefully with our new administration and things are going to change, that we become more customer friendly, because when people like himself or other businesses have issues, there's nobody to walk them through and say, this is how you do it, this is what we need. Instead, we just say, no.
And that's what, talking about a plan, I can come up with a million plans, but if it doesn't fit into Norwood's way of doing it, it doesn't matter. I mean, and that's why I set up a meeting. That's why as soon as I talked to Gabby, I set up a meeting with Mark so that I could come. I would have came prepared. I mean, I was told I was going to get a vote last time. I didn't. I was told I was going to be told about the committee. I didn't get told about the committee. I mean, it's okay if it's no, but I mean, I'm being ran around, and I'm still showing up, and I'm still trying to make connections, and I understand this is a hot button topic, but at the same time, I also can't make a plan with where to take the business unless I know which direction it's going, one way or another, just to be clear.
So, I kind of want to bring it back to the beginning a little bit again.
Okay.
So, in my head, some of the issues the hurdles that are needed to get over to get some of the votes going to meet the obligations of a Trex are answering questions like the number of jobs, maybe putting a dollar estimate, even if it's just where your head was at in your plan, into the investment you would put in, the time frame you would put those in, and any of the kind of the high level critical items that you would take of in the order of that operation. So I can repeat that again. So it's
Yeah,
number
yeah.
of jobs, investment dollars, the time frame of that investment expenditure, and then the critical items in the order that you think they would go.
So-
if you could ballpark for us.
So
that
number
might
of
paint a
jobs,
picture.
I would imagine in 2 to 3 years, we'd be in that 8 to 10 jobs, which would be doubling what we're doing. We don't have any full-time employees, and also 2 of those employees that are full-time are my family members, so and that wouldn't be counting them. You know, some of the things I was talking about, if we go towards the Trex way, I have an work equity partner that's willing to come in to help me run it, to help get it under control, to get new blood in there and new faces in there at night, to go on, to also help supplement what I'm doing and bring in some of my people down to help train from what we do in Loveland and try to pass that culture on. So, and that's why I have plans to talk about here, but like I said, they're still just me saying things because I didn't know there was a meeting. So, and then secondly, I mean, I can get some quick estimates. I also talked to Mark about, I would say to do the front of the building, to get the paint, to get a good sign, you're probably looking in that $20,000 to $25,000 in the front of the building. I think that's probably, I don't know, signs can be crazy. They can go anywhere from here to there on pricing. So Mark gave me a couple people. I asked if there was a sign company in Norwood. There is not, because I wanted to try to use someone locally. He gave me a couple companies, though, that do work with Norwood. So I have their numbers, and after I meet with him tomorrow, that's the first thing we're going to do. That's the first thing we're going to do.
Signage and facade are probably
Signage, facade, painting the entire building, making sure that sign fits up in Norwood, so out in Loveland, I have landscapers that, seasonally change our flowers, have them come down here, and it's not just, we have a pretty good, it's not just like a flower pot, they do these huge pots, we'd have them in front of the door, up and down the side of the thing, to help dress it up. Those are some of my initial thoughts on that. Was there one more question?
I did.
Yes.
You've been answering them all.
Okay.
Another concern that some residents had near me was parking and the impact that opening up kind of the tap would do. Is that something you've been thinking about? Are you concerned that would increase any parking problems, or what would you do?
Yeah, obviously parking is something I want to try to be. So right now we have 7 spots. One of the things I need to do is actually stripe those spots off. I understand that at the moment. I do know there's a pool in front of and I don't know if it's a city pool or electric pool. It's metal. It has a light on it. It looks really bad. And I was going to ask Mark tomorrow. I don't know if we're allowed to paint that when we do this. It's just this old rusted light pool, and also people can back out into it. So I didn't know if we'd be allowed to maybe paint the bottom orange so people didn't back into it. But that's not. I don't know how that works.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought because I talked about the parking.
Spots.
So yes, and here's the other option, just like what they do at Betta's. If we get to the point where we need more parking, we have the entire backside. We can tear that building down and put more parking in back. I have 5 or 6 parking spots back there now. I also though have the building that's dilapidated. It's not. I don't know. It's like it's just a storage building that we don't really store anything in. So really, if it ever got to the point where you really needed parking, you could tear that building down and finish blacktopping it off. So yeah, I have thought about the parking issues because I think that's something you got to try to get ahead of. I also think there's going to be parking issues, that go parking issues tend to be good for a corner in a community, because that means there's people coming.
Yeah.
It's yes, there is good and bad that comes with, but we do have options that's off street parking too.
What about pedestrians? So I was actually personally excited about something that people could walk to. Parking is important.
Yeah.
I understand you need to be thinking about that safely, but that is kind of like an area where people have a little bit of a wider turn.
Yes.
So something either, if you have thought about it, great, we can talk about it, or planting the seed of if there's ways to protect and make it more safe and friendly for pedestrians to kind of walk right in front of your storefront. That's something to be.
Yeah, now I can say I've thought of it, but I don't. We have a lot of walkers and bikes in Loveland and that also. So I deal with a lot of, you deal with a lot of people who are actually, that you're recreationally in that speaking. I'm open to suggestions on that, but I honestly don't. That one, I don't have an answer on what I could actually do that.
I've heard things like heighten the curb in front, so it help putting 2 mirrors around that light pole. those are not expensive fixes. They're just things.
That's
to be
what,
thinking about
yeah.
protecting
I mean, the
pedestrian
light pole in general is something I feel like we could use. That's why I brought it up. Now, how we use it or what I'm
Right,
allowed to
right.
do with it, like that, and I'm open. I mean, that's stuff that's so easy to do. I would have absolutely zero problem doing that.
So just to confirm, to recap for anyone watching, 8 to 10 estimated, these are all ballparks, 8 to 10 jobs created. Initially, you foresee 25K spent in the front facade signage,
I forgot about something else. I got to put a new bathroom in, which we have a pending permit. That permit's actually done and been approved by the city of Loveland. So that we would have to put in a handicap bathroom, a second bathroom in our place to serve drinks, and that's going to probably be another $8,000 to $10,000, I would imagine, to do
and
a
how much
bathroom.
is the pour bar, like the stools in the actual bar?
Oh, I mean, buying that stuff, I mean, another $2,500 to $5,000. I mean, depending on how you do it. I've already bought all the taps in that. You know, we've put a significant investment in that when we took over that tap system's a $25,000 system, but that's been in there for 3 years now. You know, things like that. Over the last, few months, we've done a lot of stuff internally on the store, which I haven't put into that equation, like painting and getting all the shelves finished and different things like that. So
where your head's at is 8 to 10 jobs, 37 to 38K in a near-term investment for front facade, signage, bathroom handicap, finishing the actual thing that you're getting the Trex for, and then general beautification.
Yes.
And then if you can be thinking about during that overhaul process, parking, and more specifically protection of pedestrian traffic, which hopefully we're all encouraging.
Well, yeah, we're on
That corner.
Xavier's campus. I mean, that's yeah. I mean, I would any ideas on that end of things would be because that honestly we don't have a ton of. I mean, I wish we had more parking problems now, but we just don't because it's not like most of the business is walk up. I mean, it's probably in that 80% range, 75% range with the college, especially when college is in.
Yeah, and I guess I'm going to address you guys where my head's at. Answering those questions that in my head is the start of economic development. It's not the big splash that I would have thought some of the things that we would expect in Rookwood, but it is economic development, and I think it's the first step or showing a symbol of Norwood being open for business. So that's the first thing. That's the lens I'm now looking at through this in. Now we got to handle meeting the needs or obligations of the Trex and meeting the needs of our citizens, the safety. Meeting the needs of economic development for a Trex, I think we've done that. 8 to 10 jobs, initial expenditures to show investment, and then taking care of the general beautification, being a good neighbor. And then lastly is safety. And this I kind of mentioned in my past 2 meetings. To me, I'm going to defer to the police and fire. And both of those people are saying for the past 2 years they haven't had any problems, and and we heard them say it, totally okay with signing off if they had to. They're not signing off on anything, but they have no problem with supporting this. Those are the tick boxes that I'm trying to go with. And I know there was history that I wasn't around for. And so it's not that it doesn't matter. I'm just taking the approach of what's happened right now, what boxes am I taking, and I think that's just the most fair way I can go about it. But I understand there's a lot of discussion, so hopefully we talk about it and we vote.
I have some things I'd like to say, and some statements, some questions. So I'll give you time if I can just kind of have my time for a minute. Just to respond, Mr. Donner, real quick. I see what you're saying, the box check and all that, but to me it sounds like things that rely on getting the Trex. Things that it sounds to me won't be done or are priority if he doesn't get it. Like beautifying the front, and I'm just going to jump in right here to one of the things I wrote down is I hear a lot about how Loveland's nice and it's great and you got the flowers and you got the stuff there and it's such an awesome place. I would like to hear less of that, and I would have liked to see more of that or hear why more of that has not or is not being done at the Norwood location.
Because like I said, financially, we took a gigantic hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars when that went down. And they're totally separate companies, and you can't combine liquor money from one store to another. They're not the same LLC. One's a partnership, one's not. the fact of the matter is on that is that's why we've got to this point, because we were finally able to start the business back up, and it's been 4 years almost, and we haven't had problems in the community, and we have been running it based on every box we were given by anybody, and that's what the same thing that the police chief said. I mean, every single thing. And the reason and so that's why I came to this point. And there was one thing I want to clarify too. In August, when that first meeting happened, I was incredibly ill. I ended up having surgery about 6 weeks later, and we didn't know what was wrong at that time. I was not here for that, and I understand, but it wasn't because I didn't care. So just so everybody knows, like, those type of things, that's not what I'm trying to do. I'm not. The front of the building's going to be done. I talked to James and Gabby yesterday. The front of the building's going to be done either way. What I was saying is, though, is I've been told there was going to be a vote. I've been told I was going to get told about committee. So if I'm going to do these things, and then, I mean, I don't know who to trust and who not to trust when I'm told on record that there's going to be a vote and there's not.
Well, speaking of trust, it goes back. You know, it seems to be a cycle 4.5 to 5 years where there's a major infraction, and then it's all good for years, and all of a sudden there's a major infraction about 5 years apart. Now we're in that precipice time area where we're at that 5-year mark, and it's awesome there hasn't been anything yet, but what's to tell me that there's not going to be anything?
What major infractions? I mean, we've had the one thing incident.
The furnishing, sale to persons under 21.
There's been, in 13 years of business, there's been 2 incidents of underage. And if you go to probably 95% of the liquor stores in the state, like if you go once every, not liquor stores, anything that carries a alcohol license, once every 5 years, once every 10 years is not, I mean, that's why you don't get your license suspended. That's why I've never had any problems with liquor control or the Ohio State Department of Liquor. I mean, I've had 0 issues with them.
But right now we're only talking about one of those places.
Right, but I mean, you're saying major infractions. I haven't had a major infraction. There was an underage sale in 2015, and that was, I mean, that you know, like I said, it actually it happens in our business. I mean,
what was the major infraction that caused you guys to lose hundreds of thousands of dollars?
Well, when we got shut down,
what led to being shut down?
It was a nuisance violation, and so nothing that employees, nothing inside of the store was what we were shut down under. I mean, you can talk, that's why the police chief said he talked to the prosecutors who did the case. We did everything we were supposed to do. Why do you think they let us open back up in 30 days? I mean, that's what, all those things, none of those things are open because we're like selling underage. I mean, the state of Ohio does not allow you to just keep selling beer to people underage and liquor underage. I mean, and like I said, if you went through other things, you would see that there are violations. Yes, there's things I take very seriously, but if there's one 5 years ago, it's not even going to be considered if there would be another violation when I go up to the state of Ohio. I'm just saying when we're talking major violations. I mean, and we're all talking about, I mean, my understanding is we're trying to talk about what the 4 years is. I understand, and I understand if it's a no. I mean, the point is right now, I can't make any decision on which direction the business is going to be ran, and I'm not forcing anything. I just feel like I haven't been told. I would have loved to have been more prepared for this. I would have loved to have brought somebody with me, you know, with designs. I mean, I understand you use like architects and people to draw this stuff, but I also didn't even know when the meeting was.
Well, that brings me to another point. I mean, that's just covering that concern I had.
Yeah.
I think you did a good job. I think you were genuine.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, no, I'm not. Yeah, I'll tell you.
But here's my problem with the limited business experience I have in 4 years of school, having a business myself. You go with plans. You go with plans, whether they change or not. Plans do change, but when you have a plan, what that shows is that you have put genuine thought into it. You have thought about it. You've talked to other people. You've consulted others in that, and the fact that we've had some incidences, or you've been shut down since then, it's like not a lot has changed. Paint isn't that expensive. The sign has changed. I mean, I want to ask too later on, like why you didn't get a sign, what they said.
I can't remember 3 years ago, but I'm meeting with Mark tomorrow.
My point is that it doesn't seem like a lot went into bettering the business since then. It seems like you're just wanting to get the Trex or leave it how it is.
Like I said,
and whether you get the Trex or not, you should want to take pride to do these things out in front. Already coming in here,
and that's the things I said. I believe I said that when I spoke with both of you gentlemen. I mean, the front of the building is something that I've been working on, like that, you know. But I want to make sure that I'm doing it in fits into Norwood. And that's what my point was, is I wanted to meet, that's why I'm meeting with Mark tomorrow as soon as I found out about this, because there's no reason for me to make a grandiose vision that doesn't fit into Norwood's vision.
Of course there would be. Because
Not
you
if
would
it
make
doesn't
money
fit
off
into
it.
your code.
We're
That-
talking,
no,
we're talking paint on the front of the building, more than just
In which
painting
paint's
on the
allowed, but putting up a good
flowers,
sign
stuff like
takes-
that, making it better. And it brings me into further things of commitment to Norwood is what, if any, because I can't remember if you mentioned it or not,
Yeah.
what community outreach has there been? Has there been any, like, hosting events? Has there been any donations?
Well, we
Has
can't-
there
we
been
can't host
sponsoring of
events.
Youth teams or donating
Well,
youth teams,
and that's what,
anything like that?
and that's some of the things I also talked about when I've met with other councilmen, is I'd like to know some of the charities that I can work with in Norwood. I would like to know how I can reach out better, joining the Chamber of Commerce. I mean, I agree with you 100% on that. And Chris, I have not got to you, and I apologize about that. Like I said, there's a ton of things, and if I'd have known I could have got everybody in, if I'd have known there's a meeting, I would have got everybody in before the meeting.
Well, it's just part of what I'm saying here is, since reopening, 4.5 years ago?
Yeah, the inside is completely different. I put in a $25,000 tap system. I mean, the entire inside of the store is completely redone. I mean, I don't know what else. I mean, if you were in there then and you were in there now, I mean, I've done a lot. I mean, that tap system is a custom-made tap system. It's not just some like BS thing you buy on the internet and put in. I mean, I put a whole cooler in the basement. So I went out and got that license to do that. I mean, we've made a ton of changes inside. Maybe I should have worked my way outside in instead of inside out. Maybe I did that wrong. I mean, I just
Well, I'm not saying whether you did it wrong or anything in my opinion. I'm just saying it would
I'm
be
just saying
nice to see some of the things.
I've made a ton of
It would be
improvements
nice
on the interior of that store.
It would be nice to have something sent to us or sent to me or sent to whoever has questions about it before, rather than it feels kind of ingenuous.
And that's
where it feels like you're waiting to get the Trex before you go further with anything, even just basic front of the store, inviting in kind of expenditures.
So it's not in response. It's something that's important we all take into consideration. We're talking about the Trex for economic development, and there are certain things that we're trying to hit to tick those boxes. Would it be nice if he had already demonstrated donating $1 million to all the charities and working with?
That's a
hang
bit
with me.
facetious.
I know I'm being unfair. It'd be nice if all those things happened first. But in my head, they're not a prerequisite for meeting the obligations of what we're voting on.
It's not a prerequisite to meet any obligations, but when you have infractions, you have disturbances like that has been happened before. It is just, to me, a very, very good move to reach out to the community, to better your image, to better what you want to do. And when you're going into something like this where you need something pretty valuable, to already have that goodwill, that good faith shown to a degree. To me, it's not shown to any degree.
And secondly, we've talked about, I wish those things would have happened first, these investments. You're a business owner. My wife's a business owner. She doesn't care about Kathy's. She doesn't. But what she does say is, I wouldn't have, in her business, put up a fence in front of her studio, her art studio, if they had made it difficult, Sims Township had made it difficult for her to get a brand new sign because they were rebranding the colors and the schemes. She went in there, they had a council, they did what they needed to do. She saw a demonstrated support system there, and then put in the fence, got the lawn care taken care of, got the building structure redone. Saying that you have to spend the money before you get the thing that's going to give you the increased revenue is putting the cart before the horse. It doesn't make any sense. And I don't know too many business owners that would say, I'm going to do all the things that you want me to do that cost me money, and then hope that you give me the thing that's going to give me the increased revenue. That's backwards for two business owners that I know. I'm not one, but...
Before you paint your house, before you paint your car, before you paint anything, you put a coat of primer on.
Okay.
Where's the primer?
This is $37,000.
That is in theory. It's been just words. It's not on paper anywhere. It's the first step towards a business plan.
Mr. Tracy.
Kind of go with Chris a little bit here. I'm sorry, Mr. Kelch. You've been operating for 4 years now under your current
4 years in
license.
August, yeah.
Correct.
It's August, I think so.
So he's been operating under his current license for 4 years. He's had the opportunity to make the money to make those changes within these 4 years. That's not putting the cart before the horse. I've been
I
operating
have not had the money, just to be clear, from what happened. I mean, I just want to be clear about that.
for 4 years. There should have been money there. On the other hand, not to compare you with a multi-million-dollar business right now, because I don't know how much you would make it if this goes through.
Business.
But even if you didn't know, even if you had a one-day notice of this meeting, typically somebody that has grandeurs of a future business looking a certain way.
I'm familiarizing myself with your guys' codes and that. I mean, I don't.
They walk around with drawings.
And I'm not trying to be, but like, there's. Yeah, I was gonna say most people, and like I said, I would come get the drawings if I'd known there was a meeting, but I can't get a drawing in 24 hours. I didn't even know a meeting was scheduled. So I think, I mean, so in my opinion, that's a lack of council reaching out to me as a person who does business in the city. I mean,
I can say this, that it's, I don't know whose job it was to reach out to you.
I don't know either.
I gave you my email for you to reach out to me with further information. But what I can say is that if you did have any sort of a plan, I would love to have seen it written on a napkin at least.
And that's what, and that's why I have Mark coming down tomorrow. As soon as I found this out, I called Mark the first day I could to set up a time for him to come down so we could go over what I can and can't do on that building, on the side of the building, on the front of the building, with the sign. I mean, you guys can ask Mark. I called him at 9 a.m. when it opened this morning. I mean, that's because I wanted to fit into Norwood's motif.
I mean, I would love to know about
really,
the sign. Like, that would have been awesome.
Yeah, no, and I can show you an old design from the sign we turned. I mean, that we put 3 years ago. I mean, I'm sure I can find that. I mean, I still know the guy who designed it. I mean, Mark remembers it. So, I mean, it's not like we haven't made attempts. And when we were rejected, we went with stuff that we did inside that we could take care of. Like I said, if you've been in the store, I've put a significant investment in the store since that's happened. So. It's fine if you want to disagree with that, but that is the fact of the matter is that's not the case. Okay? The outside of the store, you are correct, but we have made at least an attempt to do that.
Okay.
I mean,
here's
in trying to fit into your guys' codes, I would think I would be given props for that, as opposed to constantly arguing and not knowing what's going on. I'm trying to understand what's going on in Norwood.
Here's where I'm coming from. Okay, my uncle, he's owned a business for 37 years.
Yeah.
Okay, he just moved into his new building probably 10 years ago.
Okay.
Just moved out of a strip mall, been there for 10 years. He got the runaround from the township that he's in. Literally got the runaround. But he had these plans for 5 years drawn up. He walked around almost 24/7 with these plans. He got told of a meeting that he had to attend 3 hours prior to it coming up. What's he do? He walks into the meeting, rolls out these plans.
Right, like I said, nobody's. I mean, I think they're talking about these plans I think this is an unreasonable. Like I said, that's what I'm trying to figure out what we want so that I can help make it better for Norwood. And I'm trying to ask council what I can do to help that. And then I'm saying I'm willing to show some of that even before that. I think I even said that earlier. I'm willing to tie, I know the front of the building is going to be done either way. You're right. Like I said, maybe I made a mistake, and I'm not saying you should. Maybe I should have worked my way outside in. But honestly, getting people inside, like there is something to be said about the college carryout. I mean, I went to Ohio University, and they got signs that look, and that's Athens little country town, and there's still carryouts that look like that. There's something nostalgic about it. So that's why I kind of went the opposite way. Obviously, if I'd have known that it would have helped my cause to just do the outside and not worry about the inside, I probably would have done that. I mean, to be honest with you. And my full intent is that I didn't know if committee was like a committee. I met with a couple of you guys. I've never done this. I'm not a politician. I didn't know if we're meeting multiple times. I thought it was a Q&A where we were going to get together, you guys were going to discuss, and then I would come out of it knowing what I need to bring back to you to show you what we can do to try to make Cappy's a better part of Norwood. That was whether that is what it was or not, but I had to leave. I waited the whole meeting, even after the Cappy song, and I had to leave. Nobody was even allowed to really talk to me. You did throw me your card. I had a bunch of people throw me cards and write stuff on the back of cards. Little overwhelmed. Be honest with you guys, okay? Like I said, this is the fourth time I've never talked in front of any in my whole life. So I've done this more now.
Well, to me, it kind of seems like you want a sounding session of what do we want to see from you, or what do we want to look at.
I just want to know.
I like that. That's great.
Yeah,
that's a great way to reach out.
That's what I thought the
However,
committee
you
was.
can't do it on the heels of asking for something.
Well, I asked for it
huge.
before I knew. I mean, like
what this councilman wants to see, because what I want to see is some
that's
sort of a
what
plan
Norwood. What's with
with
the?
some
God,
sort
I'm
of
talking about the
dedication.
code. I'm
As
talking.
we said, plans change. Plans can
Yeah,
change.
but plans.
But I want to see something that shows that it's serious. It's not just.
I agree with
It's not
you.
just talk, and it shows a commitment.
I would have came with that tonight if I knew.
We'll see.
I mean, I don't know what else to say, but I did not know.
So, yeah.
Mr. Bonds.
Okay, yeah. So
I
I
mean-
would just say too, I think for the applicant, I think that it would be best if you speak when asked questions of, but not interrupt
Sorry,
with the council members. I think it'll just make this go smoother, so I do appreciate that. So I do just want to respond to a couple of comments. I mean, when we talk about improvements to the outside of the building, I mean, the building next door to him, the bread company building, I mean, it's owned by the current owner since 2013, and it looked terrible until like about the past year.
It's
And-
still under construction.
but it looks a lot better now. I mean, I'll give it credit. It looks really good. It looks like it's going to be a really great place for people to go. But it wasn't like he had the Taj Mahal sitting right next door to him. So I mean, should he have probably made improvements? Who knows? I mean, probably. But I don't think that we hold that against him if we can get him to come forward with a plan and make these improvements now. The other part of it, I mean, I heard the underage sales thing. I mean, the state is the one that really enforces that. Unless we want to start creating some kind of Norwood enforcement where our police start enforcing that, I would trust the state to enforce it and to step in when they need to step in. 2 issues in the last 5 years doesn't seem like a huge amount to me, and I've had multiple people reach out to me in the past 2 weeks. They've told me they get ID'd every single time they go in there, and so sounds to me like it's being run, better now, or any lessons that happened with the underage has been there. And then when it comes to the plan, to me it seems like I'm kind of getting frustrated because it seems like no matter what happens, there's going to be people on council that are just going to say, you know what, no. And there's been a lot of rhetoric that have been thrown out in the community, and there's a lot of, I can understand, especially new council members, getting kind of nervous when there's people that are out there, basically saying that if you vote for this, then they're going to fund campaigns for your opponent. And it's interesting that that's happened, and that's kind of frustrating. But I would hope that as council members, I don't think it's happening, but I would just remind everybody that we need to vote on things, yes or no with what's in front of us. We can't be afraid that somebody else is going to come and try to take us out later. And I just want to make that clear and known that we should really not consider a threat like that might be out there. Finally, when it comes to the plan, I think there's 2 ways we can go about this. I mean, I would love to see a 7-0 vote. I mean, I'd love to see us come together, figure out what we need, get a 7-0 vote, and move forward, because I don't think it really serves the community well to, have this really divided. I'm encouraged that the Ward 2 council person, where this is located, sounds like he's in favor of at least us working together to move forward. So that's encouraging to me. Many of the residents that live around this that have reached out to me have reached out and been in favor of it. So I think that, we should really consider the people that live nearby and then the people that represent them. And definitely consider any businesses that are nearby, but we have to make sure that the issues are reasonable. Something that happened 5 years ago, to me, if there's been much improvement since then, it's not as relevant in this specific vote because, one, he's not trying to open a liquor store again. He's opening it's a craft beer place where people can sit down and drink beer. And then 2, again, there's been no issues. Police and fire, as Mr. DiNardo said, are good. So at this point, I think we've got 2 options. I think 1, we could potentially come up with some kind of a contract or agreement saying that, we'll give you your checks, but in exchange for that, within 3 months, you've got to have plans submitted and approved by maybe the Economic Development Committee or the Building Department or whoever we want to kind of sign off for this specific agreement's purposes. Or we could hold off for a month and give him a list of things. We need to be clear about what we want from him. Give him a list of things that we want to see done, either plans, what have you, and have him come back in a month, and then we review it. But, I don't want us to have all these kind of arbitrary things that we're saying, and then in a month come up with new things, new reasons to oppose it. I mean, I really, Mr. DiNardo has said this in the past, I think we need to be clear now what we want and move forward from there. Just my opinion on that, and I hope that we can figure out a way to come up with it, because I do think us working together on this is going to be a lot better than 4 people voting yes and it moving forward. So that's that. Thank you.
So if I could, I would like to respond, because I did bring up the underage drinking, and I'm not doing it to say, oh, this we can't let him because of that. Because I'm sure there are other places that have been busted. You got an employee that just doesn't do his job right, and now you're sitting here like, come on, man. But what I'm saying it for is that it goes to show that there have been instances. There has been, I don't know, maybe business practices that weren't done the best way. And we're not being critical of some new business coming in and trying to buy a place and expand. We're being critical of business that's been here and has had instances over a course of some years here. That's what we're being critical on. And when he's coming with no plan of what's going on, and I have not seen much inside. I know when I drive by, it looks the same, just a different sign. What I want is the plan, and I want to see that. And I want to see a commitment to the city of saying, hey, even if he's got a little above and beyond, hey, I'm a sponsor a ball team. I'm going to do this. I'm going to get my name up there. I'm going to get people in a good light. Not just, hey, we've been here. Well, we had a self-described death penalty, but we're open again, and we're operating on a shoestring budget. Like, do more. I want to hear less of that, and I want to see more of painting the outside, give it a new look, like spruce it up with some bushes out there, like in the planters and stuff. Little things like that, that's just a little effort that doesn't take a lot of business savviness. It doesn't take a lot of money. Something like that, just to say, hey, look.
I agree, and Chris, I apologize that I didn't reach out to you. I've had some of this conversation with other council members, and like I said, I had a card with 4 names on it, and I'm just trying to take it one step at a time, and I will definitely make sure I reach out to you this week. But I mean, I agree with you. Okay, so I appreciate
that. I did not come in here totally against it. I don't go into arguments totally against it. I'm willing to have my mind changed. I'm just being critical on the points that I don't like and that I would like to see more of.
And I appreciate that, and that's really what I thought this was going to be, so that I could, because I don't fully understand. I mean, now I'm fully understanding. Okay, like not just today, over the last like month, 2 months, I understand it's a hot button topic, and that's why I'm trying to. So I mean, okay. You can go your counsel. I was just responding.
Mr. Brady.
Thank you, Mr. Merrill. I appreciate that. Ben, thanks for coming tonight.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
So I want all those things too that everybody's mentioning here tonight. I want all those things too. But I think we need to remember what our jobs are here. We are a legislative body. We control the purse. And it is up to us when we spend money. But in my personal opinion, which maybe, looking at my job description, this guy is coming here begging us to do business in Norwood. Our reputation in Norwood, is that we are, that we don't like, we're hard to work with. I hear this all the time. This is why. I mean, this guy is begging us to do some business. Good Lord. As far as I can remember, 50 years or so, for 30 years, that place has served alcohol. And it's been the Cleaning Lounge, it's been Donna's, it's been for 30 years, and my guess would be 50, because way before I was around this place. And now we're gonna be, I mean, I feel like that this guy's begging us to do business. I mean, I just, in my mind, it's like, who do we think we are, man? Let this guy, and on the other hand, I understand what everybody's saying. I understand, I personally don't mind that it's taken a little bit longer for that corner to be developed. I know how hard that is. I'm a builder. I understand exactly what you face. So it doesn't bother me that it's taking a little longer to build that corner up. And I do understand that the guy that's doing it would like to protect his investment. And I understand that. I don't know what goes on there, but it's not our job to be killing businesses here. And I feel like that's what everybody, I don't know, I just, Our reputation is hard to work with, so I just feel bad for this guy. He's begging to do business.
Here, Ken, I would say you could. I would just ask that again, that like Ken recognize you if possible,
so
just
I
to
didn't
keep
know
this
how this
organized.
works, man.
That's good. Just let everyone finish their thoughts.
Well, can I respond to Mr. Brent? I don't think we're trying to kill a business. I don't think it's gonna like put you out of business if you didn't get it. I mean, I don't think we're trying to be hard to work with. I mean, at least I'm not trying to make that sound. I'm just trying to say, hey, I would like to see this reasonable list of expectations met before we move forward. That's all I want. I mean, it's not a new business. Like I said, it's a business that's been here in the past and has had some issues. He'll tell you they've had issues. I want to see certain things. That's it.
Mr. Tracy.
Hopefully these will be my last two, because I have been kind of like Mr. Kelch here, the devil's advocate, or I didn't come in here saying no. I came in here on the fence, just like I've said the last two times we've spoke about this. So the first thing I want to ask is, I understand your employees are carding every single person, and somebody has gone in there 3 or 4 times and been carded. Have you looked into the possibility of electronic certification of those, as far as running the card through electronic form to verify that that's a good ID? Because in the business that I used to be in, or as far as the profession I used to be in, a company called ID Chief makes the best fake IDs I have ever seen. I dealt with ID Chief and trying to shut them down when I worked at Xavier as a police officer, because those college kids were using them, the ID Chief, like it was candy. So, you know.
Is that a question? I didn't know if is that a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Is that a question?
Yeah. So we have the electronic ID machine.
Okay.
And actually, like, you can, when the ATF was here back in the fall, we actually worked with them because the fake IDs was what they were trying to get off, not the underage. And so, you know, I actually went back up there. That was one of the times I did go up there at night, because I was like, you know, I got them out front, and they're like, we want you to, if the ID scans, we want you to sell it so that we can get the ID off the road. I mean, that was actually something that that happened this past fall, like when school came back in, like August, September. So we do, in 2015, the last time there was, that's when we brought the machine in. So we do have the machine now that we run every ID through, and I mean now we do it for cigarettes too, because cigarettes are 21.
Okay.
I mean, it's gotten crazy, yeah.
So the second one, and hopefully the last one, because that answered my question, and I appreciate it. What lessons did you learn from
Well,
this?
I learned I need to get leadership in there at night, and that we need to change the way that we actually, you know, we did things. That I need to change the way that things were done at night. And like I said, we've taken a lot of those steps. I mean, that's why the last 3.5 years we haven't had any issues, and we have been operating it how we have. One of the things I was trying to do is, if the Trex goes through, is to bring in an equity partner who would work his way into 50% and be the face of it. Yeah, absolutely phenomenal relationship individual. And then that would bring me, obviously, it would bring me down here, because there is a different skill set. The difference between a carryout, you know, in ringing a register, and that's why there's different type of employees you hire and different ways you handle things. And so, I mean, what I've learned is the ship needs to be, you know, run a lot tighter. I need to get people in there that can you know, keep it all night, and that, you know, I'm going to have my face down there more often. And those are two of the things that I've wanted to talk about was, you know, being more involved in the community and trying to do things like that. And I think I even said at that first council meeting that I've missed an opportunity, and I put that on myself. And those are things I have talked about with a few other council members outside of here that I have gotten to talk to outside of here.
Mr. Bonzo.
Yeah, I would just say that, you know, I hear people talking about facade, this, that, other. I mean, the business is going to be here selling, doing carry out, whether we approve the trucks or not. So, you know, in my opinion, if we have a plan moving forward, we have a plan for facade improvements with the trucks, then it seems like there's going to be improvement there. But the business is going to be there whether we approve it or not. And so I just want to make sure that's emphasized. So when we talked about the items, so I've got two things here mentioned. We've got bushes, planters, spruce up the outside, and then we have a plan for the facade, like a plan for the facades, like what the sign's going to look like. So what other items do we need him to come back with next time he comes?
That assumes that,
Mr.
that assumes that we feel that we need to have another meeting.
Valid.
And
yeah.
some of us don't think that.
Mr. Thompson.
Just a bit of clarity to the law director. If this body decides that we don't want to grant this, that's not the end of the story. That means that you have to file the city is against it, and then you have to go and defend that decision, right?
No, because there's two here. One of them is a permit that came open, and I think that was for the wine.
D2.
That came open, and so he's applied, and that council objected to, and so there will be a hearing set, and we'll go up and argue about that if council wants to follow through on that. The Trex is different. If we don't, the city doesn't sign the Trex transfer doesn't happen,
Okay.
and that's the end of it.
Okay. What was my second? I personally don't think that one way or what you think or the other that we should ask you to go and jump through a bunch of hoops in order for you to receive a decision on this. It's not something that we have to vote on. It's not something that in a council setting we would vote on. This is just kind of a thumbs up, as we said. It's an agreement. And would it be great to have 7 people here that agree with it? Yeah, but if it goes 4-3 or 5-2, I'm totally fine with that too. So we're a body, we all have different opinions on things, and sometimes we're going to disagree. And that's nothing to be ashamed of. And so I feel free to represent your opinion on this, but I don't think that, personally, I don't think that we need you to go away and come back with other things.
Mr. Brady.
Thank you, Mr. Miracle. This is not a major redevelopment here. We're talking about a small building that he wants to do business out of, and he's told us he's going to fix it. And I'm curious on what Mr. Moore would. Is it really up to us to say, or even legal to say, you need to bring us a plan, a really nice plan to make it really nice, or else I'm not voting for it? Is that even legal? I mean, that don't sound. I mean, we're going to stand on either side. So is that even legal? Just to be like, man, if you don't give me this great plan and improve your business, I'm voting no for that. To me, that's huge arrogance, and that's just one guy's thoughts. And so I'll be curious on what you have to say about that.
Well, my perspective would be, I've had a lot of developers come to me and say, we want to do this and we want to do that. And so it really comes down to, if you think that this satisfies the economic development project portion, if technically you think that, yes, this is an economic development project, then the question becomes, is he really going to follow through? Is this developer, is this business owner going to follow through on what he's telling us? And that can be a tough call to make. Sometimes, sometimes you approve PUD plans and nothing ever happens. And sometimes it's a little more vague, but you end up with something better than you ever thought. So that's kind of it. I think that if I had questions as to whether or not there's sincerity from here, I would want to see something on paper. I would want to see, here's the sign design that fits within the Norwood sign code. And figuring that out, if there was an objection, if there was a problem with it, it was likely it was just the size, given the length of the frontage, which is just you make it smaller. I mean, but to do a design, like here's what the sign drawing looks like. Here's the landscaping plan I'm going to do. Here's a budget. I mean, that would be the thing that you say, oh, this gentleman is actually serious about it. The other side of it, if he's sincere and in your opinion, and it's you guys that vote, or decide in this situation, because I'm not doing it on this one, then is if you think he's sincere and once he's got the tracks and he knows what the revenue stream is going to be, he's going to have a better revenue stream, that he's committed to doing what he says he's going to do and work with the city and maybe do something better, maybe something a little different based on the feedback, but that will do a real improvement. But that's really the question. I mean, that's the how much assurance do you need to feel that you're okay on this is going to generate what you think it's going to. If you think he's blowing smoke, right? If you think he's just saying whatever it is you want to hear so that you will give him what he wants, then you can say no. That's easy. I mean, that's the thing. You got somebody coming here asking you for something. It's the same thing if somebody wants a tax abatement, if somebody wants a rezoning, if somebody wants whatever it is. If you either don't like the project, you have no confidence they're going to produce something you like, they're asking you for something, you have the right to say no. Now, the one of the things that was mentioned, can we work out some kind of an agreement? That would be hard to do in this situation because we would have no authority to then, okay, we'll sign the tracks if you agree to do this. If he doesn't agree if he ends up not doing it, we have no way to get the permit back because we don't have the authority to do that. So as far as a legally binding agreement along those lines, that couldn't happen because we don't have the authority to do that as far as pulling that back out. But bottom line, I think that's kind of the issue for this and for any of the other development projects that come in front of you is if they're asking you for something, you don't have to say yes. And before you say yes, you can say, I want to see this and this and this before I say it. Just like if somebody wants to borrow your car, you can say, no, you can borrow my car, but I need this, 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 and this first.
So, excuse me.
Mr. Bonsall?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask a question through the chair to the law director. So as far as agreement, yes, sure, you can't put in there that they lose their trucks, but I mean, you could put financial penalties in there that could be legally enforceable. So, and I mean, they would, something reasonable, but still something that you'd rather not have to pay them. So that's kind of what I was thinking. I wasn't thinking that you lose his tracks. I was thinking that there's some kind of penalty because, yes, that was, and I don't know what it is, what the exact amount is, but I feel like there's probably something we could do if we wanted to go that direction. I don't know if it is necessary, but.
Mr. Gabbard.
This is a hot topic, and I have racked my brain. I've prayed about this. I've talked to people. I've had a lot of conversations with Ben. I've had a lot of conversations with Mr. DeLuca. And I will respectfully disagree with Mr. Braden. And, if we forget our history, then we're doomed to repeat it. And there was some serious history here. As early as 2015, we have an underage thing. And that's a big problem. And one of my big drawbacks on this is Ben, you're saying, you have had a clean record for 4 years. And this is not like a regular business that's begging to do business in Norwood. This is a continued business kind of thing, with just in a different format. Ben is going to get the D2, which is be able to serve wine. He's going to get that. That's not a part of this at all. He's getting that. Regardless of what we do with the D1 treks, he's getting the D2. So he's going to be serving wine. I want to see a place like this in Norwood. We don't have another place in Norwood that's committed to craft beer drinkers and in a small environment like that. It's almost like a small Starbucks. Starbucks is just dedicated to the coffee. They're just kind of dedicated to this small niche. And we need this. I like the fact that it's in a walking district area. I like the fact that a lot of people in that area that are surrounded by that are in favor of it. We've had overwhelming support for that. My problem is in the 4 years, we're to the point now, and you're saying, I'm going to do this and this and this, but you've had 4 years that you could have done some of that. You could have been engaged in the community. You could have done some things, whether big, small, or little. There could have been some things to show credit to build credit. I'm trying to get a loan right now so I can do some things. And my thing was, I didn't have enough credit. I have to build credit first. So that's one of my issues. I would almost lean towards, because I think you're genuine, and I think, like I said, I want this to happen. I would lean towards, we go with the fact that he's going to get a D2. He's got some plans. He wants to change the look of the place, the atmosphere of the place. He wants to become a good neighbor and be a good neighbor. That we hold off on the Trex part. You go along with the D2 and you start serving wine. And it's like you kind of prove yourself. You change the atmosphere, you change the culture, you change maybe some employees possibly. You work at a parking agreement. And then maybe, next year you show a bunch of good faith things that a lot of different people are asking, because you're already starting with the wine. And then, okay, you've done great. You've really engaged in the community. You've done some charitable events. People are flocking to your place. You're showing good business and everything like that. So, yeah, we'll be willing to take that next step. That's kind of where I'm at right now, because there are so many holdbacks on this. And like I said, my thing is we've not had, and I know some of that takes money. You're exactly right. It takes money to make money. But in 4 years, there could have been some things done that we could have been past this point.
Thank you, Mr. Gabbard. Anyone else have anything? Mr. Kelch?
I'd like to say I agree with Mr. Gabbard. That's kind of what I've been saying, maybe in different ways. I don't know, but I definitely want to see that community outreach. Those little things that go a long way that don't take a lot of money, don't take a lot of talent, but it's hustle, it's hard work. Things like that. Like, I do think a business like that would and could succeed here in Norwood. I think it'd be really awesome. But seeing those things that we haven't seen is, to me, plays in huge. That and a plan of some sort. Like on paper, I can sit down with my coffee and check it out.
Mr. Tracy?
Thank you. And again, just to reiterate with Mr. Gabbard here, I do respectfully disagree with Mr. Braden there. And he basically alluded to a lot of the things that I had basically said. These businesses want to come into Norwood, and I love it that you want to do business in Norwood. It's great. It's fantastic. You see the potential here. However, we need to see some sort of investment again, and I know at least 3 of us have said that. We need to see some sort of investment instead of somebody just coming and saying, I need to have this, I need this, I want this. We're trying to create a better Norwood here. We're trying to create a better economic development vision here. And that's one of the things for this Trex license is economic development. Part of that economic development is the exterior, is the facade, is the aesthetics of that. That is part of economic development. We don't go into an economic development meeting and somebody comes in and says, hey, I'm going to put a shed down there on Norwood Lateral and I'm going to sell lemonade out of it. And think that that's okay for us to allow. That's, we really have to look at what we're doing. I mean, we go in, just as it's been said, I don't remember who said it, we go in and, Mr. Moore said, we look at developers' plans and see what they want to bring in here. We know what they want to bring in, what they want to do before they even start anything. So, again, that comes back to the economic development portion of this Trex license. I personally need to see something, just like Mr. Kelch said, even if it was on a napkin, something that shows sincere improvements.
Mr. Bonson?
So I definitely, Mr. Gabbard and I were in the same meeting with the applicant yesterday, and so we heard the same things, and I know where Mr. Gabbert's coming from. I specifically asked the question to Ben, no matter what happens, let's just say the Trex doesn't get approved, you get the D2 wine license, are you going to make it the wine? Are you going to put the bar in now and make the wine bar whatever? And the applicant hadn't thought about it, but he seemed to think that he might. But there's, it was unfair to really put him on the spot for a commitment. But I don't quite know if he truly, I think he's got to look into the numbers. But I don't know does it make sense to do all of that and all of the improvements that he wants to do just to sell wine? Because I don't know of many places that you go sit down, like you can go and grab a drink that does wine and doesn't do beer. And I know they're out there. I'm sure wineries and such, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying they're not out there. I think that if we're going to try to allow him to create the place that he wants to create, I think we need to do all the homework we need to do now. But I think we need to, and once he, fulfills all of those hurdles, I think we need to allow him to do the tracks, because just doing wine only and then making him wait a year for the beer, I just think that's a little bit unreasonable, in my opinion. I'm definitely welcome to feedback. It's the first time I'd heard that, so I don't, I still need to think about it. But just wanted to put that out there. And then I heard that, I heard somebody say that we're trying to create a better Norwood here, and if we're trying to create a better Norwood, we need to give what we're expecting, if we get that far, but we need to give what we're expecting, allow him to fulfill it when it comes to plans. I don't think we should expect him to go spend $20,000 and us still potentially say no. I think that there should be some expectation that once he goes and gets his plans, that we allow him to go ahead. And whether that's through a contract, I still think a contract might not be a bad idea with the financial penalty, but however that is, I just think that we really need to lay the expectations out there, allow them to fulfill them, and move on, because to me, dragging this out for the next year, I'm just not really in favor of that.
Mr. Braden.
Thank you, Mr. Miracle. So I appreciate the feedback, and it's okay that we have differences, and that's the reason why we're here, so we can go over both sides and we'll hash it out. And I learned from that, so I appreciate the feedback. However, I want to say that I think it's wrong to ask this guy to develop half of his business now. So here, we're going to give you half of it, but you just do half of it, and maybe we'll let you do the other half next year. So I personally think that's wrong. But I do think that either we're going to let this guy do it or not. The endless discussion is a little overwhelming, is a little much. So whatever happens, I believe we should report this out, and if we're going to vote on it, just vote on it. Let the man know whether or not we're going to let him do it or not. That's what I think.
I was asked that question yesterday, and I thought about it. I mean, honestly, I don't know. Like I said, I'm going to do the front of the building, and whether anybody believes me or not, and whether we get the cheap tracks or not, that's going to be done. So, I mean, that's irregardless. And when it's done, then that'll be the proof. But like just getting the wine license and not having the beer and running honestly, at that point, you're asking me to run. I would rather just run it as a carryout, probably. I mean, I thought about it last night. I haven't had a ton of time to really think about it. But doing it halfway is probably not the way to make it successful. I mean, you kind of voiced what I was going to say a little bit. So, I mean, I just don't see that. I mean, if I meet the other requirements on getting the things together and getting the place together and bringing in a work equity partner and actually changing, I mean, even the LLC, I mean, it'd be a whole different company. I mean, it's just DBA, Cappies. I mean, that stuff I'm willing to understand and do. Like, I get that there has been incidents, and so that part I understand, like, people wanting to protect their vote. But if I'm only going to do it halfway, Gabby, to be honest with you, I'm probably not in that regard. And that doesn't mean I'm not going to take care of the front of the building in that when I say that. But, like, just I have $10,000, I think, tied up in this license for over a year now. Because, and then I'm going to tie it up for another year. I mean, and I might not even get the vote in a year. I mean, that's I have no problem tying in things that I understand, because there are people. But like, if we're talking about doing the D2 as like a test run, and this is just thinking about it for a 24-hour period of time where I have had a lot of other things to actually think about too. In that regard. That's just where I'm at with that. It's not a successful way to try to start it, to be honest with you. It's not gonna, it'll just kind of be there as opposed to actually being something worth doing. I mean, the actual wine part of it, I should say. The wine stuff's gonna grow with the beer stuff, in my opinion, just from doing it at the other places.
Okay, thank you. So where do we stand? Mr. Gabbard?
Just to respond to that, I guess my issue with that is you're asking us to believe you that you're going to do all these things. We're asking you kind of the same thing. We're asking you to believe us that if we ask that all this kind of things kind of happen, then there's no reason, you've eliminated all objections. There would be nothing left. Besides holding the purse, we are the gatekeepers for this city, period.
Sure.
We are the ones that say what comes in and what needs to go out. And so that's why I'm saying there needs to be some standards here. We're setting up the standards, just like Mr. Bonzel said, we need to give you the expectations. We're trying to give you those. And that's what we want to do. Now, you're behind the 8 ball on some of this kind of stuff you didn't know, and I understand that too. But we are going to set up the expectations of, because we're in a unique situation here. You're not a new business trying to come here and we're kicking you out and saying no. You're going to be here regardless. We're just saying, for you to take the next step, here's the expectations that we asked for, and then once those are met, there's no objection. We're good to go. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gabbard. Mr. Bonzel?
So I'll just say that, and that's fine. If there's going to be expectations that are set, I just don't see it being. I don't think that it should be a year. Like
well, you just said we give him expectations.
Oh, I agree. No, but I mean, to your original one. I didn't hear you withdraw what you originally said when it comes to letting him do the D2. So sorry about that. I must have misunderstood. So essentially, if we're going to do it, then let's give it to him. Let him come back in a month. That's my opinion. If there are council members that want to move forward with this, I think essentially what the committee should do, because we're not unanimous, so I think what should happen is essentially we should report out that the discussion happened, and if there's a council member that wants to make a motion of council tomorrow to allow the clerk of council or the president of council to sign the Trex transfer form or request that they sign the Trex transfer form, I think we make it tomorrow, and then it just takes a majority vote to do that. And I think that would be a good, will of council if there's somebody that wants to move forward doing that. But I think there's also the option, like Mr. Gabbard just said, to allow the to basically put the expectations out there, allow them to meet it, come back in a month, and
I got one more point.
Move forward there.
Mr. Braden?
Thank you. And I understand the perspective. I appreciate the perspective and where you put that to where, we're the gatekeepers, and I respect that. But if I'm remember correctly, we're only talking about this because you have gave us the opportunity to talk about this. You could sign off on this. The mayor could sign off on this, right? You could have done this without.
This past
So if
council
that's the
did an
truth,
objection, though.
then
Not
we
to-
don't.
No.
Then you could have bypassed us and just. You said you've done that before. Am I correct on that? And then, so if that's true, it really ain't it's not really up to us. We're just getting that opportunity is what I heard.
Mr. Bonzel?
Yeah, so there's two. So I think different cities probably or different communities handle it different ways. I think that's why there's such an openness to who can sign that form. The last council kind of did insist, to Mr. Moore's credit, we asked that these things come to us first, that we have the chance to look at them. Now, the mayor at the time could have just said, well, whatever, I'm just going to sign them anyways. And that would have been his right. The law
Asking
director.
for it,
We asked that happen.
That being policy are two different things.
Sure, I agree.
So
but
my point
Mr. Moore and
that's
wanting.
where the arrogance comes in, is where I'm, in my opinion. This
Yeah,
is my
but-
opinion. That's all it is an opinion, and I respect other opinions, and that's it.
So
Let
just
Mr. Bonzel.
Okay, so so Mr. Moore, I think, wanted to respect the will of council at the time, and because there were multiple people that kind of requested this, we had a small discussion about it, and I think that's why he's bringing it to us. Now, I think we could decide in the future, we could say, hey, look, Mr. Moore, that was the wrong decision. We really don't want to spend hours and hours reviewing these in the future. You all can just make the decision. Because, we've done these for yoga studio that wanted to serve beer. There's all kinds of things that have happened for these. And I don't think they all require. It was at the Brookwood. So I don't. Anyways, long story short, that's why that's happened. And I just,
Mr. Boswell, I feel bad for this guy. He's sitting here while we're taking turns. You know, I feel like he's a punching bag.
well, I agree. And if this was on any other corner, we would not be still sitting here talking about this. I mean, that's and I would just.
Let Mr. Thompson
I
speak.
do kind of agree with what you just said, that we're treating you like a punching bag, and I'm terribly sorry for that. I think, if I may sum up, because I think we're starting to repeat ourselves, I think we've got 3 things that we can do here. We could suggest we have a clean vote on this where we're at right now, no stipulations, it's just, or what Mr. Bonsall suggests, as we report out someone tomorrow, makes the motion. We've got a stipulation kind of path forward where we're like, okay, show us, and I think it should be attainable stipulations, within 4 to 6 weeks. You can't remodel your store, and we can't expect you to remodel your store without your revenue stream, but we can say, what's the sign going to look like, and what kind of planters do you plan on having? You know what I mean? It's like, I think it needs to be an attainable, defined, here, show us what you mean, and I think that will solve it. The other one was the serve wine for a year. I think it's a little unfair, just because it's asking you to adopt a business model that you may or may not have been initially planning to do, and I think you pretty much stated that. So I think what I would like us to do is, we've got 3 options here, is do we want to do, if we want to do a clean vote tomorrow, then we need 4 of us to say that we want to do a clean vote tomorrow. If we want to assign stipulations, then we need to quickly decide what those stipulations are. Or if we want to go with the one for a year, we need to decide that. I'd like to do it kind of quickly, because we've got a document that's 60 pages, 50 pages long that we've got to go through after this, and we've got another meeting tomorrow, and we've talked about this for a really long time.
Mr. DiNardo.
So I'll take options 1 and 2 and put them forward, because option 3, we heard one person say, waiting a year didn't feel too palatable, but I don't know, we haven't checked it out. Would it be okay with you guys if we went around and said, if we are supportive of moving forward tomorrow? The reason that would be useful information is because if there was a majority that was supportive of voting for that tomorrow, then we wouldn't need option 2.
Correct.
But if we didn't have the majority, because some of you wanted option 2, then option 2 was what would we be putting together tonight. That's a tangible list, 4 to 6 weeks. So I think you can still achieve that by going chronologically. Does that make sense? Or is anyone all right with that? We could basically check everyone's position and determine if we're going to move forward just with one. And then if not, we haven't stuck ourselves to anything, it still allows us to go to option 2. Right? So I don't know if you could lead that for us and kind of just gauge everyone's interest.
Well, you can just go around the room, right? Keith, that's fine.
Yeah, do 1 or 2.
Oh, there's people who...
1, 2, or 3.
Mr. Geraci.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm good with option 2, mainly because I understand, I get it. He's not going to be able to completely reconstruct that entire front facade in 4 to 6 weeks. However, like I said, I'd be more willing to maybe fall over the fence if I have an artist rendering, if I have a plan in place that says in 3 months I'll have this done, in 6 months I'll have this done, in 9 months I'll have this done, in a year this is what it's going to look like. That would be more of me kind of falling over that fence, because now I have a physical plan. I have somebody that now I'll put the faith into somebody when they come out and spend. I mean, I don't know how much an artist rendering would be for something like that, but it's got to be a significant amount where somebody's not just going to go, hey, give me a rendering, give me some plans, and then all of a sudden they just throw it out the window and go, they gave me what I wanted. I'm just going to leave it like that. Because you spend a significant amount of money on things like that. And if you're going to invest in something like that, if you're going to invest in bringing us a plan, you're going to be serious about taking care of that plan and following through.
Well, I think originally what Mr. Thompson and Mr. DiNardo had asked us to do is just go around the room.
Yes, please.
And let's just,
Can I speak before we do that?
Mr.
Just
Kelch.
very briefly, why are we even doing that? Why are we doing it? Because here's what's going to happen. We're going to push it through tomorrow, and what are we even doing here? I mean, that's what I want to know.
Getting a majority.
Getting a majority of the vote, we're going to push it through, rather than give
Or
this
not.
man an opportunity to prove that he wants to do better, not just giving him his word.
You don't know.
I know, I'm just saying, we want quality business, not just any business, and this isn't a new business, it's a business that has had mistakes, and I personally, and I think a lot of people would like to see effort towards making those mistakes a little better than just saying, here you go, bud, have at it. I mean,
Let's make it brief, please.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, for the people who are on my side, that's awesome. But I would really like to put the mind at ease for the people who are not.
Thanks for your time. Mr. Boss.
Okay, so, I mean, I personally would like to see us come, I don't like the idea of just a 4-3 vote. I mean, to me, I think that, we've got it, he's here now, we've got his cell phone number, it's on the application, he's relatively easy to reach, we know how to get a hold of him. I mean, I think he's going to follow through. I mean, he's already followed through on improving the inside and changing it from a liquor store to
got a magic
craft
8-ball?
beer. So,
Mr. Kelch, please. Mr. Boxell.
however, like I said, I'm actually not sure option 1 and option 2 because I really would like to see. I think that the applicant could have been better prepared, even just like I said, napkin drawings. I think that could have been there, and I think giving him some time to show us a plan, I wouldn't mind seeing that. So honestly, I really don't know where I'm at with it, but I would like us to do what we can though to try to, if there's going to be good faith, movement on people's side, if he does come through with the things that we ask him, I personally would like us to move forward together and not be a 4-3 vote on this.
Mr. Gabbard.
I got something. Oh, you want to go around the room here?
Well, I mean,
I like Mr. Thompson said, I appreciate that. The endless discussion, that's enough. I'm okay with the 4-3 vote. That's a republic. So let's just get it out there.
Why we got to vote tonight? Why don't somebody just make? All you got to do is make a motion tomorrow.
can't
Say,
vote.
hey,
I think what he's saying is because
he's trying to gauge the room.
That's fine.
because he
That's fine
doesn't
with me,
want to
sir.
continue the
Yeah.
discussion tonight.
Can I
If
ask
there's
a question?
Sure.
Hold on just a second. Were you still talking?
I mean, we were both talking. I mean,
Yeah. All we got to do is make a motion tomorrow during, somebody does, make a motion to say, I'd like to make a motion that we vote on either approving or objecting to the Trex of Cabby's.
but
I agree, Mr. Gabbard. I don't even know if it's even right to do a straw. That would be a straw vote. I don't even think we should even do that. So I agree with that.
But Eric's point, though, was that both Erics made the point that by us knowing that there could be support tomorrow for it, that we then don't have to continue the discussion. But if there isn't support for it, then we need to continue the discussion on option 2 to figure out exactly what we want him to require.
that's right. I don't want to leave the room without either support or very defined expectations, especially from 2 of these guys, with what they need to see in 4 weeks or whatever.
Okay, I
Because I think what I'm hearing from you is you want these or I heard you say it. I want the drawings. I want to see that. So I don't want a bad scenario I envision is if we vote tomorrow, it doesn't pass, and that's the end of it. When what I hear, but 2 of the people might be saying no because they didn't have those clearly defined things laid out. You see what I'm saying? So this prevents, and this kind of gauging the room allows one or the other to happen.
We're allowed to do that?
Well, you're allowed to issue a committee report, and generally you need a majority of the committee to say what the committee's saying. If the committee reports out, the committee recommends, the committee met with the owner of Cappy's, and we discussed this for 100 years, and the committee recommends the council approve the Trex transfer. You got to know if the committee approves that, or if the committee recommends that we meet again in a month and give them a chance to bring back some plans that would be in the committee report. But you got to have a majority of the committee to report that out. So you got a way to know who's, whether you got a majority. And you can't, members of the minority of the committee that disagree are allowed to submit a minority report along with the majority report. I may be the only one that's ever done it. But
Ms.
you can do
Stevenson.
it.
That was my question. If we're split, we can always do a minority report. I got you.
Cool.
Can we answer
Forgive me.
Mr. DeLuca's question?
Did you have a question, Mr.?
I did have a question. Thank you. I've heard a lot of discussion about him applying for a D2 license and that the state would ultimately give him the D2 license. I concur with that. I believe that the state, other than Norwood's objection, will ultimately give him the D2 license. And then I heard the gentleman also say that he would not move forward with that license. My question is, why even apply for that license if you were never going to use it to begin with? I think that's the whole Trex transfer thing is separate of the D2 license. What I fear here, and I heard a councilman, I apologize, I don't remember who, say that you guys are being told one thing, but ultimately what will happen is another. He said he's had one underage sales. Here's two. He also came before council initially and said that the whole liquor agency thing was a bad thing. He didn't know what he was doing. But yet he had an agency out in Loveland. So I don't think we're getting the full truth here. And right now his back is against the wall because he understands financially. He is at a spot right now financially where he is making this much money. He can't do any better. But he has to understand, he put himself in that position. He had a gold mine there when he had an agency. And he sold it to Kroger's. I promise you, he didn't sell it for $1. He sold it and made a lot of money. And now he knows to get to the next level, he needs an on-premise license to allow consumption there. But that's going to come at my expense. I sent 2 council members a video Friday evening of my parking lot, which barricades out front, but yet his patrons pulled in every which way. The question here isn't craft beer, a cute Loveland store, a place where you can walk to with your kid, your dog, or that. I'm all for that. The question is the ownership, and who will execute that in the best way, in the most responsible way. It's one thing to make a mistake and learn your lesson and move on with your life. But it's another thing to say, hey, I've made my mistake. I've never had a mea culpa. Have never really improved anything. Have never reached out to the businesses that he did affect and say, I'm sorry, this is what I want to do. Only at the time when he needs something. I'm sorry, folks. I was born at night, but not last night. And I applaud the council members who are seeing through this. And for those of you who are not seeing through this, I'm sorry. Shame on you. This is not about being business. We are very business friendly here, I believe now. It's about getting the right type of business and the right type of ownership. That's what it's about. So that is my thing. You applied for a D2 license, and now you're saying, hey, I really don't want it.
I said I wasn't sure. I was asked 24 hours ago, and I hadn't had enough time to find
But you applied for the D2 license how long ago?
I would have to look. Well,
Several years ago.
It was answered yesterday. He applied for the D2 and the D1.
Any questions?
Yeah.
Point of order, is that you're not here to argue back and forth with him.
I apologize, but you have the license, and now you say you don't want to use it?
Thank you, Mr. Dillon.
I just wanted to respond to that. I mean, that was answered yesterday when Mr. Gabbard and I met with him. He applied. He's on the list for D1 and for D2 license. The D2 is the one that's come up so far. If the D1 license had come up at this point, then he would have had both of them. So, I mean, using the Trex is the way that he's able to get the D1 license now to actually make the improvement without waiting another 5 or 10 years or however long it takes to get it. So, I mean, that question was answered.
Okay. Well, let's see what the majority is, as Mr. Moore has suggested. So we'll go around the
I'll
room.
just say, yeah, I would vote, the straight up vote option 1. I would support that.
Mr. Gabbard?
What's the options again? I'm not sorry.
Thank
but
you.
It's been a while.
One is clean vote, 2 is stipulation.
Option 3, I'll
Come
wrestle you
come
for
back
it.
in a month with some drawings and with the, more concrete plans.
I would go for at least 2.
2.
2 if we can get it passed, yeah.
The first.
The 2.
It's 4-3.
So if I did the math, there was 4 2s and 3 1s.
Yes.
So number 2 was to come back.
Well, sorry.
Please, Mr. Nardo.
Number 2 was to not leave until there were concrete asks of what we want to see at an extended time frame.
Reasonable, I would say. How long we give it, how long we, it was like coming back when?
1 month.
Is that enough time? A month?
To come up with plans to come back here, it should be plenty of time. I mean, I'm meeting tomorrow, and then I plan on calling the sign people after that.
Well, signs is not the only thing. We got to make signs, and we want there to be, some sort of expectations of a parking agreement.
What do you mean by parking agreement? Like, or at least can you explain just for people that...
Just like Mr. Luca mentioned, his people are parking there. Now, I think we're kidding ourselves if we don't think that Mr. DeLuca's people are not going to park in his spot come 10 o'clock when he closes, because Mr. DeLuca's place will be open till 1, and it's going to be probably a hop in place because there's nothing else open at that end of the, of Norwood. So, but just so that they have some sort of an agreement worked out that they can, share, those couple spots that are right up there on the line. Ben sent me a photo today showing that he'd put some cones at his line just to try to keep some of his customers from, going behind the barricades. But those are 2 that I can think of. There was other expectations that were brought up.
I think one thing that he can ask tomorrow is what he can do about that. Can he put a curb up maybe to try and keep people from...
Well, I don't know that that's going to keep. It's just going to be still a matter of just pulling in. Once the barricades are down and he's open, it's going to be, they're all going to be open spots, whether there's a curb there or not.
Right.
I've parked in other people's spots and walked into the next business and came out and my ambulance was on a tow truck. I mean, everybody does it. You can't say you don't. I mean, everybody is parked in somebody else's parking lot and went in the other place's business.
So what's the agreement supposed to say?
That there's an agreement that, okay, we understand that there's going to be some overflow maybe during a busy time of Mr. DeLuca's or a busy time of Ben's spot, that that they understand and they can agree, and it's not going to be this is going to be a big fight. Continue. I just think that there should be some sort of an agreement. Just a lot of places work. I mean, he works agreements in Loveland, the same type of thing that he works with other places out there to have some mutual shared parking kind of thing. They both put new aprons in their businesses, so I mean that's a lot of money. And it's not something that can be done in a month. I mean, like I said, part of my issue is that you've not been community engaged in 4 years. You've not tried to have that on-site leadership in the evenings, and you have admitted that. I mean, that's not something that I'm just trying to slam you on. Those are a couple key issues, that we want to make sure that that we are going to have some responsibility there once some more alcohols and, able to be consumed on site.
So just for the plan, so what does he have to do then when it comes to community engagement to check the box that?
I don't know that there's something that's specific. I mean,
It'd be
Because we're asking for specific things, that's the thing.
Well,
for us to say go out and sponsor one of the knothole teams right
you've
now.
not
That's
sponsored
just
team. You've not joined the
But you could say
the
community,
business.
I want to see a community. I want to get a message.
Yeah,
We don't
some
want-
sort.
something
But on
that's
something like
genuine.
that, how do you do that in a month to say you're engaged with the community? What I'm saying is that's something that should have been done over 4 years.
If that's
Over 4 years, he could have joined the commerce. He could have sponsored a team or been engaged or hosted a fundraiser or a charity event. It's something to engage the community.
So there's nothing, and it's okay if there's not.
Yeah.
There's nothing in a month that would
Right,
be
that's what I
presented to you.
said.
I agree with Mr. Gabbard, because, I mean, it would be nice to see, that maybe this is like the wake-up call, say, hey, I gotta get better involved with the communities I'm in, because I feel like it's not something we should have to ask for. If it's in your true character, business plan, model, whatever, it's something that you do without being asked. It's part of that.
As far as
of who you
tangible
are.
things that he can do in whatever time frame, that's the two that I'm looking at right
If I
now.
may, I'm all for community engagement, but I think if we polled every business here in Norwood, you're not going to be getting a ton that are actively engaged in supporting knothole baseball and things. I know that companies do that, but that to me is irrelevant to economic development.
Mr. Thompson,
again, Mr.
we're not talking about any company. We're talking about a company that's had major issues, that got shut down, lost a major licensure, and now they're wanting to kind of move back towards that area. We are the gatekeepers. We have to put expectations on, and if that's one of them, then so be it.
I don't think knothole baseball is an expectation.
It was just something to throw out that I know that they
I know, but we
accept
keep
business
throwing it out there,
donations.
and I've heard it
There's so many things
There's
that
all
could have been
kinds of
done, should have been
community
done, can be done.
I understand.
I agree with Mr. Gabbard on this, like, take away knothole baseball, okay, doing park cleanup, there's a park cleanup coming.
So there's nothing in a month.
That would be awesome.
I just want
So,
to.
yeah, we've already,
It's just, but
okay.
to Mr. Thompson's comment that,
Gentlemen,
again, we are
please.
not talking about just any business, like Mr. Gabbard said, we are talking about a
One at a
business
time.
with issues.
I know we're not talking about.
To ask a
any
little
business.
more from them, I feel is reasonable.
I know we're not asking, and I can't believe, because I've pretty much kept like a neutral position on this, but we're attacking him for something that happened 4 years ago that he's had a clean record on,
I agree.
according to the police and fire
Agreed.
department, for 4 years. That shows
Agreed.
intent,
I-
4 years worth of intent.
You're exactly
He's
right.
apparently put in a significant amount of money on the inside of his business, which also shows intent.
Well, to me, that's just 4 years of not getting in trouble or not getting caught.
Well,
Maybe. I
isn't
don't
that
know.
great?
Well, it's,
Isn't that great? Have
Yeah,
you
well-
have you ever had anybody underage in your premise?
No,
Never?
I've never sold underage, never been in trouble for underage. We ID everyone.
I have a question for
State
but-
law,
department.
parents are allowed.
Okay, great. But what I'm saying is it was an infraction, it was a closing that happened for 30 days. I think you said he got his license back, he reopened, and so there's only so much penance I think we can ask of our local business owners.
How much is too much, Mr.?
And right now, we spent the better part of 2 hours flogging him.
Let's,
I don't think we're flogging. We're
let's
trying
reel
to
it in.
get
Let's reel it
quality.
in.
we've
Mr.
already,
Kelch. Everybody take a deep breath for a second. Mr. Bonsall.
thank you so much. Like, we have already addressed the issue that he did not do enough community engagement early on. So right now, the topic is we voted on number 1 or number 2, straight up vote or come back with a plan. We decided that we wanted him to come back with a plan. So we didn't vote, but we have that feeling. So at this point, we need to know. So I've got signs, we've got expectation of parking agreement. We need to talk about what we want him to do in this next month. That's what the topic is right now about that. So is there anything on that topic that we wanted to do?
Do something genuine. It's
Okay.
open
I
to
have
interpretation.
one last
that's
comment, and
Mr.
it's for the law department, and how much is too much? Because I have a feeling, and I could be wrong, that Mr. Gabbard, your concern was to try to come up with something that they'd both be happy with. I got a feeling that's not going to happen. So I just got that feeling. Maybe I'm wrong, but how much is? We just say how much is too much to put on?
Here's what,
I just don't.
He can just, but
just if I can, my perception of this is, certain members of the committee want to see, part of it is a sense, they want to see steps toward goodwill, and it's hard to quantify what that would be. And so anything community engagement would be helpful. There's concerns about parking and pedestrians. Exactly what solutions to that would be is really hard. You can't say up front, I want this plan to come out. I've never seen any plan that ends up coming out that way after you go through the whole traffic study process and all the rest of it on the big project. But the committee wants to see something on what are you going to do with parking, what are you going to do with pedestrian safety.
Yeah.
And exactly how that plays out, I couldn't tell you, but I think that's what the committee wants to see from him, is some efforts along that lines. Here's the things I'm doing, here's the things I have done, here's the next steps, here are the next things to investigate. And I think the same is, the sign drawings, that's easy. That's pretty, as far as being concrete. And then, facade items, which is whether it's landscape, I think it would be, my thought would be it'd be too much to make him hire a landscape architect to do a whole big deal, but to have something, to come to the committee with something in a month would go a long way, is the impression I get, since we're at a 4-3, it looks like right now anyway. And the idea is, according to Mr. Bonzel, I think, in order to get his support on this, is to get more than a 4-3 bare majority kind of support from council. Would like to see more than that, and I think that my impression is if he comes back with something on the parking, with the sign drawing, and something on the facade, and if he can, something regarding community engagement and good faith, that would go a long way toward moving the rest of the committee that way. Is that about right? Does anybody object to that?
I'm okay with, how many other businesses are we requiring community engagement?
It doesn't matter at this point. It doesn't matter how many other. We've already said that we're going to try
where's
to
the
require
government
it.
overreach?
That's-
You'd be surprised what we've asked businesses to do when they want something.
Oh yeah, and it's only overreach if it's political opponents that are wanting to try to exploit it. So essentially, there are all kinds. That Norwood sign on the lateral right there, I'm pretty sure that came through an agreement with Linden Point, and I might be wrong about that.
Oh, yeah.
But
yeah, we required him to do it in order to get this part of the TIF and the.
Can you finish your point so we can?
Oh,
yeah. Oh no, I have. Yeah, that's fine. My point's been made.
All right, so I would like to see, even if it's just planters with arborvitae in it and some flowers around the outside of it. That's a start, that's a step towards landscaping.
Can we get just a yes or no vote? Yes or no thing. Would you be willing to put some planters out now?
Yeah, I was going to say, all the plant stuff, I can have my landscaping people do that in 30 days.
Yeah. Absolutely. Just a few, some plants, flowers, make it kind of look nice. If you'd be willing to do that now without an agreement that we get the checks, that would be nice, it sounds like, Mr. Tracy, if you're willing, so.
Well, there's plenty more.
That's fine, we get that one, he checked it, he said he would do it.
Okay, but that's something that can be done in 30 days. That's the thing that I'm saying. You can come back with an architect drawing. It doesn't even have to be a $10,000 architect drawing. You can go out there and get plans for colors and come back and say, here's my business, here's the color I'd like to paint it. Awesome. Okay? Now I've got somebody who spends $2,000 on somebody to draw up plans on what the paint scheme's going to look like with a sign on it. Also coming back with a piece of paper that says, this is what my sign looks like, or is going to look like. It fits in with the building department specs, and this is what I want it to look like. And this is how it looks like on the business, or how it's going to look like on the business. That would be enough for me to say, okay, you spent $2,500. I know he's not going to just throw $2,500 out the window. If he's saying he's in the making no money right now, he doesn't have that $2,500 just throw out the window for something like that.
If he doesn't have it, then why are you expecting him to?
We just want a little effort. Can you just give us a little effort, some genuine effort?
I agree.
Say, I love this city. I love being here. I want to do better, and I want you guys to accept me. That's all we want.
So
to be honest.
My idea I'm sorry, I didn't know if I was being
No, you're fine.
question there or not. I'm sorry. I agree. I would almost rather do it where I had to do the plans and that in front of council, as opposed. to do the things that need to be done. I mean, honestly, in 30 days, I should be able to start to paint the facade of that building. I mean, it's not like I should just be, I mean, the sign's a little different, but painting the building's not, I mean, when I talked to Mark today, there's not paint restrictions in Norwood. I mean, obviously, we would want to try to probably go with some kind of Xavier blue, I would assume. You know, I could have the permits and that for the sign. I can have all the plants and that taken care of on the outside. You know, I can have the lot striped. I mean, I would imagine most of this stuff I could probably get done in 30 days. Now, paint's a little tricky when it rains and that, but I could at least show the progress. I mean, where I would show physical progress at the store and planned progress for each other.
That sounds awesome.
And as far as me, I'm not asking, and I know some others might be, I'm not asking you to do these things in 30 days. I'm just asking for a plan that you say, okay, I can get these things done, I will do this, and I want to see that you've paid to make sure that happens, because when somebody pays for something, they're making a commitment based on that payment for somebody to draw something.
But it wouldn't hurt if some of it got done,
if
correct?
some of it got
Okay, I just want to make sure. I'm just asking because I'm not sure anymore. I just want to.
No, I just want to make it clear. I'm not trying to say that you have to have these things done
Yes,
in
you get
30
yes,
days.
yes.
I understand you can't just shell out $20,000 in 30 days to improve something right off the bat. But if some of them happen to get done, and you say, hey, I didn't come back with a paint scheme and a drawing, and here's why, and you've got photos, or we drive past it and see it, I'm okay with that.
Yes.
I don't know about any other
Okay,
people who are...
I think we're finished.
Yeah, thank you.
So 30 days, we're going to see it.
So just so I'm clear, yeah, sign, facade, plants, parking stripes.
A good faith effort on trying to reach some kind of a parking agreement.
Yeah, and like, I said yesterday, I don't know how we do a parking agreement, but I said that I would give my spots, I have zero issue with Will or his business is using after I close. I mean, I'm willing to sign that. I don't know. I don't know what, if he's going to sign a part. I don't know how that works, legally speaking, but I said that yesterday when we met, so
Okay.
I have no issue with that.
Can we make sure he's notified of when the next meeting is too,
Yes,
since
Give me-
late this time?
yeah. And I'll get your contact information. I guess I can get that from,
Write it down.
That would be the
Well,
first
we'll get it.
Yeah, we'll
meeting.
Yeah, we'll get it.
April
Would it be a
council meeting.
Tuesday?
It would be a
So
Tuesday,
we
the
do it on-
second Tuesday of
It's
April.
not a committee meeting?
No, it would be a.
Okay.
Right?
Tuesday.
I mean, it's whatever, it's fine.
Well, I'm going to be in contact with people, so. Okay. I'm pretty sure. Thank you, gentlemen.
Good night.
So it took so long.
our next topic of discussion is the auditor state reporting on accounting methods. What you have in front of you, I made a copy and highlighted for you. I think Mr. Thompson was right, it's close to 50 pages right there. This document was I think was generated December 13th, 2018. And I spoke to April this morning, April Davis from the auditor's office. And what you have in front of you, what's tabbed, these are control deficiencies, best practices, and instances of non-compliance with state statutes and the Ohio Revised Code. They're identified throughout the report. So what I wanted to bring this evening in the Committee of the Whole to share with you what April had shared with me. These items need to be addressed before that we can get out of the fiscal emergency. There are 34 of them. Like I said, I had highlighted them for you. I'm working with Anna Mary. I had an email late from her this afternoon. What she's going to do is give me an email that will we will identify who's responsible for these. Okay, and then we will communicate to them. We want to get a progress report of where we stand with these, and to establish some type of timeline when we can expect that these will be completed. And then the process is that these are submitted to April, then she will approve them and communicate back to us. So I wanted council to be aware that I'm working on this. I won't go into all 47 or 48 pages, but I want you to review this as you get a chance. I'm sorry, Mr. Thompson.
Yeah, so you said we originally got this December 13th, 2018?
I think that's what is it, page
Page
3, I think that's where it stayed.
Do we know if any of these had been attempted to be resolved under the previous administration?
I spoke Saturday with Mr. Stith. I think that he has worked on some of these. However, they have not been communicated to April.
Okay.
I think Mr. Bonsall had his hand up over here.
Yeah, essentially, I mean, I was just going to suggest a way forward on this. Mr. Miracle and I have met and talked about this plan, or this report on accounting methods. It is one of the 2 or 3 things that are holding us back, and I expect this to likely be the last thing that holds us back if we look at timeline of when, of getting out of fulfilling all the check marks. It's ending the year with no negative balances in any of the funds. Having a financial recovery plan that shows a good solid future, positive balances each year, and getting this report on accounting methods done. So, to me, there's a bunch of, I forgot the exact number. 34 recommendations. To me, it would be good if somebody could, and I think that you said you might be willing to do this, but to track. To basically create a spreadsheet, number what the item is, who's responsible for it, and essentially just kind of track it for us on, updates and when they're completed, marking it complete, what have you. I don't know if, and I think if there's issues that would prevent maybe this getting done, like an item that's getting done before the end of the year, let's say, I think then you start flagging those and bring it back to this committee of the whole, or bring it back to whichever committee and let us know.
Well, what you had suggested, Mr. Bonsall, is exactly what I'm doing. I'm creating a spreadsheet. I'm going to list all 34. We're going to identify who is responsible for these 34 items. And then what I'd like to do in unfinished business is just report out to you gentlemen monthly.
Perfect.
Which ones have been taken care of, because I want this done way before the end of the year. I don't see any reason why we couldn't do this in the next 90 to 120 days.
Okay.
And many of these suggestions, if you will read that we will probably have to, I should say probably, we will have to create an ordinance and have council pass that. So just to be clear, we're going to have a spreadsheet, which I will share with you, all 34, who's responsible, where we stand with the 34, and then report out monthly. And as April Davis and her team approve these, then we can do whatever we want to, color them green or check them off, whatever we want to do in the spreadsheet. And then on a monthly basis, then we can I can share that with everyone here. And then as we're moving forward, if there are items that aren't moving as quickly as we would like them to, then we can find out why, and also bring that to your attention. So I won't go over all 34 tonight in the interest of time, and that's why I wanted you to have that and review that at your leisure. But I will report back to you once I receive from Anna Mary the list and who is responsible. There are some that maybe it could be more than one person, but we'll move forward with that, and then we will communicate to these individuals what our expectations are, and I think it's important that we put a timeline in here. I think I've said to you before, Mr. DiNardo, what gets what was my I just lost my train of thought. It was our little motto that we have.
What gets us out of fiscal emergency is the objective, and I think we'll be able to do that well beforehand. And I know that you're just now putting it into the formalities of the spreadsheet, which is important to go through that process. But Jim has already been working through a lot of these items anyway, so I imagine that.
Actually, I have here. He just gave this to me Saturday.
Yeah,
so I didn't have time to.
So I think that you guys will find on our first report out, we're closer than these tabs appear. In fact, some of them are past tense. So it's just worth noting that we should see that.
But what is worth noting is that April has to sign off on these.
Of course, I know.
And I'm glad that some of them are done. But once she signs off on them and lets us know that, then we can check that box.
Sure.
So, is there any questions that you have, Mr. Brady?
Thank you, Mr. President. So I guess my first question would be, is there any of these that jump out at you that you really want to let us know about? That, because I haven't been through this yet. Is there any of them that you want to really let us know about? And then secondly, if I noticed that Mr. Mayor came in, and if there's anything he would like to add or say about it, I'm assuming that maybe there is. That's why he's here. So I'd like to ask him if he wants to speak.
May I answer that question? Mr. Mayor, so I think he's got a good handle on it. I think, like Councilman DiNardo said, there are some things that have already been completed and that we're making progress on. Ken has taken this, the President's taken this very seriously. He's taken it upon himself to drive this. He's going to make sure it happens. So I'm confident that we'll get it done.
And there are some things I anticipate that it might be a collaborative effort. One of the, we don't have a written disaster recovery plan.
Right.
We've
Less to do about that.
Yeah. So we have to do it. It's what is required of us. I don't know who will be involved in that. Probably a number of people, but we'll do it. We'll check off the box and report that out to the auditor and the auditing team. So that's pretty much about all I had for that. Is there any other comments or questions that I can answer? So I will report out to you monthly on this, and like Mr. DiNardo said, I'm sure there are some that have already been completed. But we'll make sure that we get the information to April Davis and her team so that she can bless them and get them back to us so we can check them off. Anything else? Think we've covered everything? Awesome. Thanks for your time. So we're adjourned.